Casual workers on the coal mines. Let's have a look. Good evening, everyone. Florian.Heise here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. I've got my evening stein of coffee, and I've invited a good friend of the channel to come on board and to talk to us a little bit about the latest news. Remember how they were saying that casuals could potentially double dip and get extra holiday time and all these other perks? Well, there's a reason why the media portrayed it that way, and it's a little different to reality. I know that shocks all of you. So I'd like to welcome to the channel once again, good friend Stuart Bonds. Thank you for coming on board, Stuart. How you going, mate?
Good. Florian, and you?
Oh, I'm surviving the end of the world. You know how it is. every day. How's life down in New South Wales? All good?
Yeah, good. It's quite cold down here. I think that the climate change has taken a backward step. I mean, I've been growing a beard to try and keep out the weather. Yeah.
Well, see, you're a lucky bastard, mate. You don't have the solar panel up here. You feel it. You feel the cold. You know, I'm going out. It's like nine degrees in the morning when I wake up here, and it's Queensland. I mean, that should be against the law. You know.
Well, 9 degrees. I don't think that's unheard of up there.
We're all soft here, mate. Anything below 20 is considered, death-defying if we survive it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for those for viewers who are not familiar with you, why don't you tell us all a little bit about yourself, what your game is? Because you're a coal miner, or you work on the mines. You're a family man.
Yeah. So, as a mechanic, I have a wife and a 2-year-old that's going on 22. I ran down here for the federal seat of the Hunter, and I nearly knocked off the famous Joel Fitzgibbon, who's the Shadow Minister for Agricultural and Mining and Resources. So yeah, I got close. I mean, I'm hoping to get in next time, and I've got a lot to do with the issue that we're just about to bring up here, I guess.
I think a few of your mates have to realise how preferences work this time, mate, and not put you second.
Yeah.
Oh, live and learn, eh? Live and learn. So,
yeah.
I mean, this whole issue has come to the media, and they're portraying it in a particular way. You know, this talk of double dipping, and they're showing images of coffee baristas and hairdressers on there. Where this recent case that's now had a court ruling, it's very specific. It's dealing with the coal mining industry, and you've been looking at this for quite some time now, and you found, well, a rather depressing story of what's been going on in that industry. So, I mean, let people know, how does it work on a coal mine there? How many people do you have on there? Do you got different teams? And why would the mines be doing this, be bringing casuals on? I mean, aren't you just there like for weeks on end?
Yeah, so there's different. A lot of coal mines are set up differently, especially when you get to more remote areas. The coal mines are very much set up as you do week on, week off, or 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off to limit the amount of travel that you need to do. When you live closer to the coast, the coal mines, you do a bit more flexible hours. You might do a few days on, a few days off. Right? So they're quite desirable positions to get in here and around the coastal areas. So, I mean, as far as the way that casual employment ties into the mining industry is, it shouldn't be in the industry. Now, we have an award, right? It's called the Black Coal Award, which defines the types of employment that you can be employed under, right? The same as there's 122 federal awards in the country, right? Anything you can think about is there's an award for it. Now, our award is M0001. When they negotiated the modern award system, we landed at number 1, right? And when you go down, it has clearly, it's like 10.4 on option 10.4 on the in the award, and it says that you can be full-time, part-time, or in the case of Schedule B employees, casual, right? Production and engineering staff are Schedule A. Right? So there's not even a provision for casual employment in
What,
our award, unless you're an office.
Oh, so that's a Schedule B employee, office staff.
Office staff, surveyors, that sort of thing, because these projects are 30 years long, right? So you were never meant to hire people casually, right? In the industry, these are full-time positions. It was set up by people. The award was set up a long time ago where they wanted to keep the full-time jobs because they knew the danger of allowing casual employment into our industry, right? Was that the industry would end up casualised. And lo and behold, here we are, 50% of the industry is now casualised. So that's not necessarily the issue, I guess, is that if people wanted to work as a casual employee and your award says round figures, you're to be paid $100,000 and you get paid $125,000, then you are being compensated for your annual leave, sick leave, or your entitlements, right? Your R&R. The problem is the award's about $105,000-ish, and these guys have been getting paid $90,000 to $92,000.
So,
right, so there is no dipping taking place.
So they're not even passing. They're not even passing the fairness test, mate. Then
no.
They're below award.
That's big. Yeah, they're below the award. Yeah.
So, I mean, are people talking about this on site? You know how? Because one of the issues with these companies, and what is it, WorkPack, the big one, they're proudly talking about how we've got 10,000 people on these mines, and then another 1.1 million people on the books behind them. So if you put your hand up, go, oh, I'm not happy with this, there's a million people literally behind you clamoring for this type of work right now. So there's definitely a power disparity.
Oh, absolutely. And you lose all of this is one of the things about being a casual. This is why you need to be paid more, is because there is no redundancy pay. You can be sacked with 4 hours notice, right? In the case of some of these employees, they've worked for multiple different companies at the same mine and never changed shirts. They stayed on because one employer would go bankrupt, supposedly, and another employee would take over the contract and they would end up with a pay cut, right? And then that would happen again a few years later. So there's an enormous amount of phoenixing that's been happening. It's just you name it, and it's got quite a detailed history. This does in our industry. Now I can go into that if you'd like, but to fix a problem, you first have to know where the problem started, in my opinion. So you can go back into history a little bit. I could take you back in time, Florian.
Please, let's I got my Stein here. It's late at night. I don't have any whiskey in it, I'm afraid. But let's share some of the history with the viewers, because I mean the fact that it's gotten to this point where now there are people getting paid under the award, and you're saying, a company's getting phoenixed, and I know, I can picture exactly what's happening. You're now working for such and such, you're working for such and such, and you got the mortgage, you got the kids at school, you got to keep going with it. You kind of can't.
There's always the carrot there. People want the full-time job, and they're told that they can get it, and then if they just hang in there long enough, and in the case of BHP, which is New South Wales' largest coal mine, they didn't employ a permanent employee for 6 or 7 years, right? And I mean, they've got a couple of thousand staff in their production and engineering, right? So they're not being very good residents of, there's a lot of mines that have a good ratio, set 80-20, right? I mean, I think that's a fair ratio if you had 80% permanent staff, but you need to pay the other people fairly. And I mean, now this is where, as I said, if we rewind the clock and we go back, and I don't know if you can throw that blue graph up while I'm talking, mate, that stacker graph.
Hang on, mate, one second.
Originally, back in the day, casual employment, as I said, had always been banned. Right? always it's a panoramic, unfortunately. But if we start back there in 1991, right? You've got Coal Rock. Now this is a union organisation, right? Started up to employ retrenched miners when the smaller mines were shutting down. A lot of the underground shut down, and these guys had nowhere to go, or they were injured and they need to get back into the industry. Now this gave them an avenue to get back into the industry. Now, at the time, we've got letters and everything that shows this. They wrote to the Productivity Commission and the Minerals Council and everybody, and they said, we're aware that casual employment is not in the award, but we are paying 30% above the award. These are all our costs, right?
Yep.
This is what we charge for our labour to get our guys in there. Now, I'm not saying there was anything wrong with that business model. It sounds like a good, genuine reason to have this thing around, right? But if we scroll across, this went on for a long, long time, and the company become...
This was the recession Australia had to have around here at the beginning of the 90s. There, so that's why we're seeing this. That's where this has emerged then in that recession here. And then we go from, Coal Rock onto United. We're moving over.
United, which they're all owned by the same company, right? So then you've got United Mining Support Services, I think it was called, it morphed into 2005. And then what happened around this time was sold to a company called Tessa, right? Now, at the ASIC documents, and there was 15 million shares in Tessa issued at that time. Now, the union got a large chunk of them, about 1.6 million shares. I don't have any transaction data, so I don't know if the union sent them money, but considering Tessa brought I can't see how the union would have been. Maybe it was just part of the whole package, right? Anyway, the union retained shares in Tessa, this casual employment company. Now, the bit I don't get is during this period of time, the union endorsed Tessa contracts, right? Tessa enterprise agreements. So here they are on one hand, negotiating for the employees when they themselves were shareholders of the company, right? Very disingenuous, right? Once they secure these mining contracts, Tessa, a short time later, sells to Skilled, right? Now, they sold for around about $62 million, right? So here's this $15 million company, 18 months, 2 years later, $60-odd million, right? But the deceitful part about this was the union always said, yes, we had shares in Tessa, the labour hire company, but we sold our shares because it didn't agree with the union values around casual employment, right? So they act like they sold out of Tessa.
Yep.
But they didn't. They rid of their shares when they were sold to Skilled. But the problem is, when you drill down into who were the shareholders of Tessa, there's probably a third, maybe 40 to 50% of the shares that were owned of Tessa were union. They had union connections. One guy was the managing director of when it sold. Another guy's, there's plenty of family members in there of union officials. There's all sorts of people, right? Now, their names aren't in that shareholder list. If you get up the shareholder list, you can see it, Florian, if it's not too much trouble.
I'm just trying to... no, hang on. I don't know. I can't get that one up that you sent me.
Yeah. So anyway, there's a list of shareholders, and it's not individual names, very few of them, and they're all companies. But when you go into the ASIC extracts of who owns that company, it will say another company owns it. And then you go into who owns that, then you'll get the names, right? So there's enormous degrees of separation in this. Now, you got to think, this was pre-iPhone, right? This is when you had to apply probably via mail to get these extracts, and then you got something mailed back. By the time, you try and join these dots up. There's no way that anybody could have connected these dots back then, right? But now with the internet and the free flow of information, this has all come out. Now what you can see is that interesting things happen. See Bluestone Global there, that was Therese Rain. Therese Rain was involved in that company. That's Kevin Rudd's wife. She was the director. Also a director of that company was John Maitland, who was involved in the Eddie O.B. scandal, right? That company was used for Phoenix. It was crashed at one point. Everyone lost all their entitlements, right? Then you've got, you can just see this explosion of businesses, right? And these are all people that jumped onto this scam that was running, right? And they've just brought into it. So, but most of these enterprise agreements were signed and endorsed by the union, right? So here you've got them on one hand arguing against suing companies for casual employment, and on the other hand signing the very enterprise agreements that allow it to happen. And had they have not, when an enterprise agreement's put in, right, you can put it in for dispute, right? You can say, we don't think that this enterprise agreement meets the award. All right, we're going to challenge it. And then you go to the Fair Work Commission and you challenge the enterprise agreement. All right? But this never happened. This never occurred, or very rarely did it occur. So, I mean, there it is right there. There's the graph. That's how it occurred. There's your timeline. And you can just see this huge explosion at the end. Now, the Industrial Relations Commission ceased in about, I think it was 2009, 2010, right when we've got that enormous explosion that happens.
Right here.
Right? Yes. So that was your Julia Gillard, Kevin Rudd Fair Work Commission, right? Now, the very first enterprise agreement that was endorsed by a Fair Work Commissioner that had casual terms in it was one of Julia Gillard's mates, right? She was high up in the Labor Party. I think she was she ran the ACTU, I think, at one point. All right. And then it just hammers on from there. All right. And so, look, there's a lot of people that are at fault here. There's a lot of people. And I think that this is one of the reasons why this is, people are avoiding having an inquiry about this. I mean, because you've got, the Liberal government's been in charge for about 7 years, so from about 2013-ish onwards, right? And so they've overseen this system the whole time, and I suppose that they've just kept things rolling as they were, and now everybody's got blood on their hands, right? So it's in nobody's best interest to try and sort this out.
I mean, there's a few interesting. One interesting you mentioned there, almost an incentive for people to go casual is if there's this prevalence of phoenixing, and all of your entitlements that your good employer is holding aside for you, your holiday pay, your sick pay, all of that. If they disappear and you lose all of those entitlements, maybe there is an incentive for you to get it all paid up front and stash it away yourself before all of this happens.
That'd be fine if A, you were given a choice, right, and B, you were paid the award, right? Nobody on that screen, not one person that's ever worked for those companies was ever paid their minimum entitlements. Now,
so how's that possible? People, I mean, when they're presented with the award, or here's your contract, it's the unions approved it, so that would certainly, you'd be thinking they'd be doing a good job, they'd be taking care of their members, but these people aren't members, are they?
No, basically nobody. I would say that it'd be less than 5% of the employees that are with these companies would be union members. So you're talking, this is tens of thousands of people, right? Because you got to think, this extract here is the Hunter Valley, right? This is not Queensland.
Just you lot.
Right? This is just in the Hunter, right? So this same scam has happened right throughout Queensland, and Queensland is, I don't know, triple the Hunter Valley, right? A lot of these companies are in Queensland as well, but you can see where one company takes over from the next company, and there's several of these companies here. See the guy that opened up Tessa, he then opened up Resco, right? And then all the stuff happened with Eddie O.B. They used the money from Resco to, funnel it into the Doyles Creek mining project, and that big scam happened, and Eddie O.B. and John Maitland copped it, right? That investigation's still ongoing. So, but you can see, as you got up on the screen, you can see the enormous amount of Coles mines that are in Queensland, right? And you've got a cross-contamination. So you've got union officials from New South Wales signing enterprise agreements inside Queensland, and Queensland signing them in New South Wales, right? So there's this degree of separation there where you don't know the union official, you can't see him, you can't ring him, right? This is all smoke and mirrors. I mean, the biggest smoke and mirrors one that I've seen is the workpack agreement here at Mount Thorley Warkworth, where the union is suing to recover wages for casual employees, but they sign and endorse the enterprise agreement, right? So when you speak to Workpack, they're like, what? They sign the agreement, right? Like, why are we being sued? This is what happens when you get this level of, I don't know any other word for it other than collusion, corruption, right?
Well,
when you get this level,
they can sue the union for not following. They can go to the union again.
Well, eventually, I mean, the union's already started throwing the Fair Work Commission under the bus, because they say, well, which is true, right? It's true in a way that they say, well, the Fair Work Commission, it's their job to view everything to make sure that it meets the boot test, right? Better off overall. Now, this is a very important thing that people need to understand, is that you can look at your award and it can be worth $100,000, and you can negotiate in extra leave entitlements and things that suit you to say, well, I don't want to drive to work, so I want this, and I don't want that, I want this. And you can exchange things in and out of your agreement to make it suit. And when it goes to the Fair Work Commission, if they look at it and they go, okay, you're better off overall in this, right? You as the employer are better off. The employer may have something that suits them. It might be worked out. They might have a different roster that's not in the award. Doesn't configure, right? But they can look and they can go, well, your award's 105 and you're going to get paid 111. You're better off. We'll allow you this to go through, right? But the union's turning around saying, well, they're the gatekeepers, right? It's up to them to check that this stuff's better off overall, right? Which is true. It is up to them to check it. But there is a thing called there's a boot test analysis form that you need to fill out and sign. And if you are a union official or a solicitor and you sign those forms, I'm pretty sure that there's a jail term in it if it doesn't meet the boot test, because you are lying to, and it could affect, well, in this case, it has affected 50,000 people, right? So this
what we're looking at here, we're talking about the coal industry. Yeah. What about all the other industries?
Just the coal industry.
Just the coal. What about iron ore? What about gold? What about the other? Is it prevalent there as well, or you don't know?
Now, what we need to understand is that the media is portraying this as, they'll show a coffee barista and they'll show a girl at your local bakery and the kids at Macca's and whatever, and the Australian Industry Group will say, well, nobody's going to hire, you won't be able to get a hamburger, right? Like as if the Australian Industry Group gives a shit about people being able to get a hamburger, right? they're looking after their members, right? Their high-paying members. And there is a very clear definition of what casual employment is in the Fair Work Act and what full-time employment is, right? These guys were given rosters a year out, right? 12 months out, they'll give them regular work hours. Yeah, 12 months in advance.
A year?
Right? 12 months in advance. In January, they were handed a roster till the next January. Their pay rate was fixed. They had everything was secure. They were casual by name only, right? That's not Tiffany from your local bakery that gets called up that says, "Can you do 4 hours on Sunday?" Right? That's not your kid at Coles that gets, for the next 2 weeks, these are your casual hours, and then it changes the next 2 weeks, right? This is a very specific problem, and I'm not saying it hasn't happened in other industries, but what I'm saying is prevalent in the coal industry, and that is why the 2 lawsuits were run inside the coal industry. The Skeen decision and the Rosado decision. Skeen was first, and then Rosado was run second, right? And then it was a full bench of judges. All 3 judges in the Rosado decision handed down a 270-page memorandum to say, this is all the reason why this guy didn't meet the boot test, right? Because they knew the significance of what they were about to do. And these judges, to their absolute credit, because I really was losing faith in the system with all of this, they upheld the law. They read it, they interpreted it, and they said, well, screw the consequences. These people have been ripped off, right? And just a little bit more of my faith in the system come back the other day when that happened, because I was thinking that this was going to get swept under the carpet. Right?
Well, that's why your beard isn't grey,
really
mate.
Did. Oh, it is in some spots.
Oh no, it's you know, it's coming back. That's why.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's at least that's encouraging. That's encouraging. And then behind all of this, you've found this just web of, well, we should say opportunism from all these labour hire companies, which have probably grown out of their competitive advantage by, you know, established relationships in the industry and with the unions, and we'll be generous and say people just saw a market opportunity and jumped at it, which we can appreciate.
Look, there'd be some of these companies. If you have a look at some of these companies, Chandler McLeod, for example, right? It sold to Recruit Holdings to about 2014. Now, Chandler McLeod is now an enormous labour hire company. It's huge, right? But prior to that, it was owned by the biggest banks in America: Citibank, Chase, you know, you name it, all the usual players, right? And around about that time, a lot of government contracts and employees were switched to short-term casual labour hire jobs, right? An enormous amount. Now, I've had people contacting me that were working for the Department of Veteran Affairs, so on and so on, that they were made redundant, and they often trained their own replacements, right? So you've had the casualisation of the private service, right? The public service industry, and in all these short-term labour contracts, right? Now, I'm not saying that it wasn't a better business model or cheaper for the government. I don't know, but the fact that you're paying a third party, right, means that third party is going to profit. So if you're paying them the award, right, then you've got to at least pay that company, 10%, 15% on top to have that employee. So our tax money and profits from it are being funneled overseas, right? There's some of the, look, there's $2 billion of them right there.
I have anecdotal evidence that backs that up. My father-in-law was working for the state government in South Australia and in the IT section. He was in as a contractor, and they had a hard cap on what contractors would be paid. So it didn't align with what services you were providing. So if he was a full-timer, he would have been up at this level. because he was a contractor, he was at the cap that they'd only pay you this much an hour. So I think it's prevalent in all of the industries. And you're saying that a lot of this money is getting shifted offshore as well. I mean, this is like
a lot of these companies are not owned by Australian shareholders, right? They're all, People Bank. It's if you have a look at People Bank, it's what's it called, Chandler McLeod, and it's owned by Recruit Holdings, which is one of the bigger companies in Japan, right? So there's, you follow them all back, and most of them have overseas origins. So the profits from this stuff is getting siphoned overseas, billions of dollars, right? This is not chicken feed. And I think one of the biggest repercussions for this, and why the government is trying to sort this out, like the other day, I mentioned it to you before, Florian, that here's the Attorney General was in February, was saying that they're going to put in legislation for jail terms for people who got caught underpaying their staff, right? Well, now we have the largest underpayment of staff that's ever occurred in the country's history, right? And they're not even so much as mentioning an inquiry, right? They're not even saying, let's look into this and find out how this has happened. If I come into your place and steal your television, right, and steal your car and whatever, there's no way you would have enough stuff in your house that I could steal from you of what wages you would have lost for 5 years working for one of these guys being paid under the award. And you're one person, and I'm one criminal, right? But these guys have stolen from thousands, tens of thousands of people, 15 grand every year, and we're not even going to look into it. But as I was saying, I think one of the major reasons is if there is criminal prosecutions, right, there's 25,000 people working in the public service sector right now that are casual employees. Where you can't use companies that have been caught deliberately underpaying their staff, right? Deliberately. This is the information I've got and been shown, and that's been sent to many different places. Proves that this was systemic, deliberate avoidance of the industrial relations system, right? This wasn't an accounting error. This wasn't, we accidentally did this, right? We didn't know. This was deliberate. Like I said, it was, and it's been, the union has been used to help get this stuff through, right?
Well, see, this is different to all the other things that have come out in the media. Woolworths underpays managers or this or this. They discovered it. Or a business changed hand, it was discovered, apologised, and the payment was made. This has come out of a court case. And now it's all coming out of the woodwork more and more.
Yeah.
I mean, where's the Labor Party on all of this? Why aren't they, defending their workers? Or they don't do that anymore, do they?
Who pays the Labor Party?
Yeah.
Right? Who pays the Labor Party? The unions. Now, you can't tell me there weren't unions involved in the Subway, the Woolworths, the Target. What are they doing? Right? Each union has one single award that it needs to look after. Right? And every time an enterprise agreement is entered in, they should be looking at it and making sure it meets the award. And if it doesn't, you just show up at the Fair Work Commission, you put it in for dispute, right? They've either been a party to them or they've let them go through, right? And if the Labor Party knows, Anthony Albanese come out the other day with a report, the McKellar report, I think it was called, that said the coalfields in the Hunter Valley, Illawarra and North Queensland are having over $1 billion of economic activity being siphoned off because of underpayment of wages, right? Now, I think the Labor Party know that they've called the government's bluff. The government's not going to do anything about it, right? So here they are. It's a game of chicken, right? They're holding the gun going, we know that if you do something, you're going to shoot yourself as well, right? So because the government's in charge of all these, Fair Work Commission, the Ombudsman, right? And I know that they know that this has been going on, right? Because I know people that have sent them all the documents. I know I've got email chains, right? I've seen all this stuff. So there's people just sitting back, just going, what are we going to do with this? Right? Like, what do we do with this bomb? You know? Because if there's an inquiry, which there needs to be an inquiry, we live in a country of law and order, right? That whether you agree with the awards or the minimum pay rate or whatever, the thing is they exist, right? And they've been circumnavigated deliberately to rip people off.
Well, you're getting parties getting an unfair competitive advantage over their competitors by doing these underpayments in these awards. You're getting unions which are cartels. There's no competition in the union. You can't go, if you're at Woolies, going, okay, I don't like the SDA, I'm going to the BBA or another made-up union. So you got competition. You got two people fighting at the Fair Work Commission to make sure your agreements are good. And most people, honestly, most people will trust if the union said, oh, we've checked this, we've signed it, boom, they'd trust that. They'd expect that organisation that they pay their membership to, or that's meant to be representing the workers, is actually doing what they're doing their job. Their sole purpose to exist is to hopefully advocate for the workers. So I can appreciate how, in this circumstance, some of these people wouldn't be checking it if it's been given the stamp of approval, and how, you know, from the workers' perspective, you trust it.
And they are minefields, right? To work out, it took us 4 hours to work out what it costs to employ somebody for 1 month in the Black Coal Award, because once you're employed for you're on for 4 hours on a Monday is different. Like, you're 4 hours and then you go to double time for the next 4, and then 175% for the next 4, you know, it's all over the place, mate. It's 200% on a Saturday, but if you're doing Saturday night shift, it's like 250%, right? So every day that you work has a different pay calculation, and then once you throw in public holidays, you get 300% flat out for a public holiday. But what they've done is they've looked at, and all of them have run the same scam. They've put all this stuff in a line, so you look and you're like, gee, that's complicated. And then at the end, they've got a total, right, of a flat rate that you get paid. Now, that flat rate, when you add it up over the year, it doesn't meet the award, right? And we've done it because we've done the calculations. So we know it's below the award, that flat rate. Now, and like I said, nobody, when they take 6 hours, no one's going to take 6 hours to work out 1 month and do that over the whole year, right? No. So our award is probably more complicated than most people's, but it's still no excuse, right? The union's got one job and the Fair Work Commission's got one job, right? Make sure this thing's above the award. And they didn't do it. They didn't even do it once, right? They haven't done it at all. So I don't know what the fallout from this is going to be. I have no idea, because it's just, this to me it'll either prove to me that this is one of the most corrupt systems that I've ever seen in my life, or we'll do the right thing here. And I've been hoping that we're going to do the right thing, but I've been sorely disappointed so far.
I think we've seen a lot of rent seekers, mate. Middlemen, people skimming off the top of other people's hard work there, bureaucrats sitting there getting nice fat paychecks. Reminds me of the Potato Commission over in Western Australia, my favourite government organisation, the Potato Board. You know.
But I mean, you've got two arguments. I mean, you've got Christian Porter's argument, which says this is an extremely difficult time for the country because of coronavirus, right? So in other words, have pity on these casual employment companies because they've ripped everyone off. Yes,
for 30 years.
I mean, but look, because it's a difficult time, you just have to all suck it up, right, and feel sorry for these companies, and just let it go, right? Let this illegal activity just slide, or
you could look at it in the fact that you can only recover 6 years worth of entitlements, right? So these companies have got away with underpaying people for, say it's, 20 years in some case, even if it's 9 years, right? There's 3 years there of wages that you can never recover. So they've made out by bandits, right? For years, expanded these companies enormously, sometimes sold them on and just made hundreds of millions of dollars in some cases selling them, right? It needs an inquiry. So,
and you had people reaching out to you with all of this and similar things. Really, when you started getting a bit more exposure with your political aspirations. And you started becoming the poster boy for coal miners.
Yeah, well, I think one of the big ones was the a lot of these people had in our award, if you're injured, right, you get what's called accident pay in our industry because it's an extremely dangerous industry. People get injured all the time, not as much as they used to because we've cleaned it up a lot, right? And a lot of the reason it was cleaned up was because of this accident pay provision. If someone gets hurt, you have to pay them their full pay for 72 weeks, right? So you don't want people getting hurt.
No, you don't. Well, so that's why they have all the safety startups now at every bloody mining project I've worked on. That makes perfect sense now.
Yeah.
But no, keep going.
Yeah. And obviously every time someone gets injured, their insurance premiums go up and so on and so forth. And plus we just don't like hurting people. Right? We don't want people to get hurt. But some of these casual employment companies, Chandler McLeod, just to name one that I know for sure, have been using the fact, because in the award, what it says, to make sure that when you go off on accident pay, the week before you didn't do a heap of overtime and they're paying you your overtime rate, right? They say that it's as if we'll pay you your accident pay as if you were off on annual leave at the time, right? Which is meant to just mean it's just your normal wage, right? Well, what these guys have turned around and done is said that, well, because you guys don't get annual leave entitlements, we don't have to pay you your accident pay, right? So too bad, right? And then what they've done is there's fraudulent documents that I've seen them all that push they said that they weren't coal miners at all. They had them insured as office staff, and they've pushed them into the to the New South Wales insurance system. So everybody else is paying for these people's while they're off on workers' compensation, right? And the New South Wales workers' compensation, you're not even allowed to insure black coal miners. It all has to be done by coal mines insurance. So here you've got GIO and the likes paying people's insurance claims when they can't even cover them, and the insurance documents are fraudulent, right? Now you try and do that, Florian, right? And I mean, these people have taken these documents to everybody important that you could list: Syrah, Wyro, even the insurance company, coal mines insurance. No, right? And they all use the same excuse. Well, because they're allowed to do it, because they're all different excuses.
So the workers have done
now
this.
It's been, yeah, absolutely. There's heaps of them. They've all come and see me. They had their lives have been ruined from this because they lost their houses, because they couldn't. Their families broke down because here they're meant to be getting this accident pay to tie them over.
Yep.
Well, they start getting paid $400 a week. GIO doesn't want to cover them for anything, or whatever the other insurers are, because they weren't receiving the correct premiums for them. So they're trying to skimp out on the help, and it's just. This is the second richest industry in the country, right? And this is the deep dark side of it, the casual employment side of it, right? Now, I'm not saying the mining companies don't partake in this. Right? I've never met a casual employer that works for a mine itself, right? But the ultimate beneficiary from it is obviously them.
Yeah.
Right? So pulling coal out of the ground. But the other side of it is the federal government is receiving royalties, tax money, and all the benefits from all of this from using underpaid labour. Right? That's the big one. So they're getting the full benefit of all the tax money and all the royalties for cheap labour. Right? And that's why no one wants to blow the whistle. So, what do you do, right? What do you do? What do you do?
People are complaining that I've got too much doomer news on my channel. We need someone happy. But at least this outcome has started to bring this to light now, and more people are becoming aware of it, and hopefully it can move forward with some positive changes to address this, and maybe wake up a few people to realize that, you know, some of these organizations that you think are on your side really aren't, you know, and see where it goes.
I'm not saying to people, I am a member of the union, right? I don't agree with anything that these officials have done. It's like if I'm a account holder at a bank, right? It doesn't mean I agree with the illegal activity that the bank has got up to, right? I just hold an account there. I know I'm a member of the union because I like the idea that we can go in and negotiate an agreement with everybody, right? I like that side of it, and I always believed in the stronger, the union mantra, the stronger together, you're better off as a pack, right? But I never in a million years thought that my wage would have been propped up by pushing other people down to the point where they've had suicides, family breakdowns, they can't get full-time jobs, right? Like, I never thought that these people would be, there's the injuries that have happened and have been swept under the carpet that haven't been reported to the regulators, right? This has all been covered up, right? I never thought that I would, I never thought I'd be staring down the barrel of this. And it took me a long time, mate. It took me a long time for my bias to be overwhelmed, right? Because I had a bias, a union bias. I was just like, no way this would have happened. No way. When I seen everything, I was like, it absolutely happened. And it's way worse. It's way worse than I thought. And I've probably told you about 10% of everything that I've seen. Maybe even less. So it's bigger than Ben-Hur, right? So,
well, mate, I know.
So there's more to it, Florian. Yeah. There's more to it than the coffee barista, right?
Yeah, you're right. And the cute barista with the purple hair that flirts with every guy so she gets tips. More than that.
She ain't going anywhere, right? You'll still get your coffee by the beautiful casual girl down the street, right? She ain't going anywhere. Casual employment is clearly defined in the Fair Work Act, right? People, and don't worry, if you own a business, right, do not be afraid of employing casual employees, right? But just make sure that you do your due diligence and you pay them their loading, what they're entitled to. Because if you don't pay them their loading, then they're owed it in entitlements, right? So it's not like they can turn around and say, well, yeah, I was employed 12 months and really I should have been full-time, and yes, you paid me loading, but I want more. It doesn't work that way. It's never worked that way, right? It's not it, right? That's the double-dipping legislation that they put in to try and cover this mess up. Now, I don't think they knew. I really don't think they knew that everyone was paid below the award. I really don't think they knew that. So... Well, you just do what I do. Make all the HR the problem of your wife. That's all I did. I just made it her problem. Rachel handled all that rubbish. I couldn't stand it. Too much government. Well, maybe that is the problem. There's just too many blokes have been in here working this out. Yeah.
Yeah, we found it just let the wives sort it out. Mate, maybe they should. Maybe they should.
They've just because they've made a mess of this, mate. I can tell you that much. Yeah.
Well, Stuart, thank you so much for spending tonight with me to go through this and to give us some insight into the other side of the story, that it's not just, what the media is putting on the table to us. I think it's...
Absolutely not.
It's pretty sad, actually, the implications of this, particularly if it's been going on for so long. you know, and you got these people that are in these hard situations.
Look, there's going to be a lot more. There's going to be a lot more to come out of it, Florian. This is an ongoing, you know, situation. I mean, the government said they were thinking about a legislative response, and that they were, you know. So now this is where the lobbying starts. There would be people down there in Canberra running around, going and seeing this politician, telling them that the whole economy is going to collapse, and you know, they'll be going and seeing the senators and scaring the shit out of them and saying, "Oh, your state of Tasmania has all these casual forestry workers," and right, not the case. Now the senators really need to look into this, and I believe we need an inquiry. Right, it's the only way that we can get this sorted, and it's the only way we can clean house and start again. Right, so anyway, Florian, thank you very much for talking to me. Anyway, and we'll do it again. We got some more info.
Definitely, mate. I appreciate it. Keep in touch and let us know when the next stage of all this goes on.
Yeah, you'll see it. Oh, believe me, you'll see it.
And next time we have you on, I want, you know, get the beard in the braids like the Vikings, mate. You know, just keep it going. Just keep going with it.
We're going to get down to God. Yeah. Down here somewhere. Yeah.
That's it. Oh, mate, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
See you, mate.
See ya.
Bye.